It's September 2nd, 2025, and we are tracking Hurricane Kiko now in the Eastern Pacific. It just became a hurricane today, but it's already up to Category 2 strength. As it continues its path westward, it will most likely become a Category 3 major hurricane before weakening as it gets closer to the islands of Hawaii. The reason why it's expected to weaken, there's going to be some cooler waters and some wind shear, that's winds aloft, that should hopefully weaken the storm before it gets close to the island chain. So let's take a look at the model track here. These are the spaghetti plots, and as you can see, the concentration of these models all heading towards the islands of Hawaii. However, notice some of those models veer off to the north and a few veer off to the south right before impacting Hawaii. There will be a high pressure system nearby that could potentially push the storm away from the islands, but there still will be some effects whether or not the storm makes direct impacts to the islands or not. And here's another look at those spaghetti plots as they move off to the west. This is a different model, the European model, which has individual models within it, several of them. And notice how there's that last minute veer or shift in the storm's path as the storm system gets closer to Hawaii. You can see it right here. So models are kind of uncertain whether or not the storm will make it completely there in some form, or if another pressure system knocks it off course like I was just talking about. So let's take a look at the water temperature here. This is one of the factors that could weaken the storm and is expected to if it trends to the north. Notice off to the north here, there is some cooler water situated off to the north of the storm. It's in this triangular area where we see water temperatures in the mid 70s. That's not quite enough fuel to keep a hurricane going. So the thought is if it does trend a bit north, it is going to weaken pretty quickly. So here's a look at the wind model forecast from the American model. Notice how the storm has that energy over the next few days here. The focus of the winds pretty close to the center of the storm, but then as the storm gets closer to Hawaii, the wind field somewhat falls apart. This is an ongoing trend, of course, as the storm heads northward. It will encounter those cooler waters and also a little bit of wind shear aloft, and that will weaken the storm most likely before it hits Hawaii or veers off to the north or south of the island chain. And here's that wave height forecast for the islands of Hawaii. This is next Thursday. Notice off to the east, where the center of the storm is, it'll have about 20-foot waves coming on shore, but it depends on if this comes directly into the islands or goes off to the north and south. Any change in that direction of the storm's path will significantly either raise or lower the wave heights. Right now, we're probably estimating about 10 to 12-foot waves with the storm coming in. This is also the rainfall forecast through next Friday, but for the most part, the bulk of the rain, at least the current model runs, takes it off to the north. But this could change very easily in that darker red color there, where you see that upwards of 5 inches of rain could easily be over the island chain. There's an ongoing drought on some of the islands, which isn't unusual, but this would definitely help to ease some of that, but you don't want that rain to fall all at once because then you'd be looking at some localized flooding. So we'll see what happens with the rain. I do think we at least see some rain over the islands of Hawaii, but for the most part, the heaviest stuff, at least with the current model track, should stay either north or south of the main part of the islands. We also have another system in the Eastern Pacific. This is right next to Mexico, just developed into a tropical storm today. This is Lorena, and that storm will be heading off to the northwest and then eventually shifting to the northeast as it's redirected by a pressure system. The storm does have an opportunity to become a Category 1 hurricane, but will weaken quickly as it goes off to the north. And here's a look at the wind forecast for Lorena as it heads off to the north here. Notice how it basically falls apart quickly, running into the mountains of Baja California and then Mexico itself there. So we're not really expecting the storm to last too long, but the impacts will certainly be felt with the heavy rain, which is probably the most impactful part of this system over the next several days. And here's that rainfall forecast, which stretches across parts of Mexico and then certainly into places already saturated here in the southern plains. So we're talking southern New Mexico and definitely Texas. These locations have been saturated over the last several days with the monsoonal rains coming in from parts of California. And now we have some more rain that could be tropical in nature. We definitely have to watch out for the potential of some localized flash flooding as this system pushes into the southern plains, and this will be going into early next week. Now we head over to the Atlantic, where we do have an 80% chance of development as we head through the next few days here. This is for the next tropical system on the list, and it most likely will become a tropical storm within the next 72 hours. So let's take a look at the Atlantic storm names here. The next on the list will be Gabrielle, and then we have several more here to go as the season progresses. If there's a particular name you think will be the worst storm of the season, leave a comment below. I'll be interested to see which name you think will be the worst storm we see. And here's a look at the wind gust forecast over the next several days. By Friday into Saturday, we have a tropical system most likely developing here. This is from the American model, and that storm will track just north of the Caribbean, most likely. This track could change. There will be a cone with this, so we'll see what the National Hurricane Center thinks. But eventually, the storm will likely take a turn off to the north. Right now, that turn looks like it takes it very close to the island of Bermuda. I think that's going to be the most concerning location with the storm as it moves westward here. So that's something we're going to be watching very closely. But other locations, including the Caribbean and the East Coast, not completely out of the woods with this one, but most likely it will be trending off to the north and eventually out to sea. Hopefully out to sea early enough where Bermuda won't even see effects from the storm either. And here we have the spaghetti plot models from the European model as it continues off to the west here. So this is another opinion on where the storm could head. And it looks like some members, individual models within the European model, take it a little close to the Caribbean, but I do think the majority of the models, even here, still trending northward and then eventually out to sea. But Bermuda, that small island, will be sticking out and potentially be affected from the storm. It looks like the track's still very close to the island, but still we have a lot of uncertainty, several more days. The storm hasn't even formed. Once it does, the models will have a much better idea on where the storm will be heading. Now, before we talk about weather across the U.S., I wanted to introduce our new weather app, Storm Chance, that will be coming out in the next few weeks. Storm Chance is an impact-based weather app. We'll be covering major weather events that impact your area. So the focus will be major storms, blizzards, hurricanes, severe weather, and everything in between. We'll focus on your area with hyperlocal forecasts, and of course we'll have weather data for daily updates. If you do have any questions on the app, feel free to leave a comment below or reach out through our website. Now let's talk about the cold weather that'll be heading into the Midwest. This is an unusual setup here as we have some near record cold coming in over the next few days behind a sharp cold front. This front will be heading through the forecast here over the next 48 hours and dropping temperatures potentially supportive of frost in some locations. And you can see the forecast here on Thursday morning. Temperatures approaching freezing in International Falls, especially in northeastern Minnesota. Even through parts of northern Wisconsin, there could be some isolated locations where there will be frost. And this is very close to record lows for this area, and a little unusual to see something like this so early in the meteorological fall season. Now, aside from the cold front, there really isn't much else going on in the U.S., so this, as we head through the next few days, will be the driving force of showers and storms. Some severe weather possible this evening across southern Minnesota, pushing into parts of southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois tomorrow. But once we get behind that cold front in the northern Midwest and the upper plains here, you can see there's actually some snow that filters in behind this cold front for northeast Minnesota. Talk about unusual to see this early in the season. We're not talking about high elevations of the Rockies. We're talking northeast Minnesota on the northern side of Lake Superior, seeing some snow in the first week of September. Now, a lot of the snow isn't expected to stick, so don't expect to see much in terms of snow accumulation, but the flakes could fly into early Thursday morning. So looking ahead, we have a few things to watch over the next several days. Gabrielle is likely to form into a tropical storm and potentially become a hurricane. We also are tracking Kiko and Lorena in the Pacific, where Kiko will be affecting potentially parts of Hawaii, and then Lorena, Mexico, and then eventually the southern U.S. There's also the cold spell in the Midwest, which could bring some snow for parts of Minnesota. And then we have another flood risk potential because of the rains from Lorena working into the southern plains. Stay tuned for updates as we head over the next several days.